Welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com. And if you're watching on our YouTube channel, Tar Heel Illustrated, I'm THI staff writer Jacob Turner. And joining me tonight from Tallahassee, THI publisher Andrew Jones for our three things following Carolina's 31-28 defeat to Florida State tonight. AJ, Carolina dug themselves in a huge hole tonight, 31-7 deficit at the half. And in the end, I think it just ended up being a little bit too much of a hole for Carolina to dig themselves out of.
When you spot anybody a 31-7 lead, I don't care who you are, you're rarely going to come back and win. North Carolina's never overcome a 24-point deficit to win a game in its history before. Its largest margin of that it overcame to win a game was 5 years ago, almost this time 5 years ago in Atlanta, when Marquise Williams put the team on his shoulder. I was there for that one. That Georgia Tech team, I don't think was comparable. I think this FSC team might be comparable and even a little more talented. And this UNC team is just too big of a hole. When you give up points with a pick six, when you get a punt block and you give up a one-play 23-yard drive, and then when you get the ball, and they did it twice in the second half, but they did it once in the first half that was key. They got the ball inside the 30, and then they screwed around and ended up going for it on a fourth down, didn't convert. They missed on two fourth downs inside the 30 tonight that were big, and then a missed field goal. So there is a lot of blame to go around. The offensive line didn't protect Sam as much as they should. Florida State came in here with 3 sacks in the season, had 4 tonight, and I have no idea how many pressures, but it seemed like the pressures accumulated as the game went on. They got more and more frequent. The defense in the first half, Florida State completed 6 passes, averaging 30 yards of completion. They had 4 guys that had completed passes of 30 or more yards. Unbelievable. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong in the first half. They could have put a Murphy's Law patch on their jerseys and had to wear it into the second half because they put themselves in such a big hole. They were unable to come out of it. And we talked about this before. We talked about it after BC. We talked about it after last weekend. This team isn't good enough to make that many mistakes and beat a lot of solid teams. We have no idea what FSU is. They had not been solid beforehand. But I told you guys the other day, they gained confidence in South Bend last week. And they came in here confident with an opportunity to play the number 5 team in America, and they took advantage of it. And I think that they sensed that Carolina's kind of demeanor and spirit was a little in flux there during the first half. And they seized on it, especially that last drive to close out the first half. That was about as bad as it gets defensively for Carolina. And that touchdown that they gave up proved to be the difference in the game. Well, there are a lot of things that did, but certainly that's one of those things where just get off the field. I mean, some people in the press box even wondered, is Norvell just going to take a knee and go to the locker room and be thrilled up 24/7? No, right down Carolina's throat. It was a complete mismatch on that possession.
Yeah, I think you got to – you mentioned it. I think you got to give some credit to Florida State for the way they played tonight. But, I mean, I think you also have to give some credit to North Carolina, and that's our second thing. Second half push from Carolina was great. I mean, cut it to 31-28. 3 drop passes at the end of the game. If one of those is completed, I think we're having a completely different conversation right now. But, AJ, that second half, I think it is a positive for Carolina. But like I mentioned at the start of the video, I think in the end, ultimately, Carolina just kind of dug themselves in too big of a hole. But, I mean, that second half is something you can take away from it.
Yeah, and before I hit on the positive of the way they played the second half, let's remember they had the ball at the 4 on their first possession of the second half, and then kind of screwed that up and ended up not scoring. They went for it on 4th down. Some people might say, hey, kick a field goal there, just get some points, feel a little bit better about things, and begin to kind of lather up some offensive momentum, and scoring even with field goals sometimes helps you do that. It's like in baseball, you get a seeing eye single, and that sometimes helps a guy get out of a slump.
Yep.
They needed those 3 points later, and then they didn't get them when Grayson Atkins missed a field goal. So they did put themselves even still in some situations where any kind of mistake in the second half could have been costly, and it was. You mentioned the 3 drops, 3 straight plays. Their 3 starting receivers, or 2 of their 3 starting receivers, and Javonte Williams, who was really good tonight. Some people may say, hey, you had plenty of time. Why not keep running Javonte? Why not run? Because at the very worst, if you hold on to the ball, you kick a field goal and go to overtime, and you have all the momentum you could ever ask for in that situation. But the plays worked. The guys just didn't catch the ball. But otherwise, Jacob, they did a lot of really good things in the half. The defense was much better. They made some adjustments. The coverage was significantly better. You know, pass rush at time. When they did get a pass rush, they forced FSU into some mistakes. But the run defense up the middle was still a little bit of an issue in the second half. FSU, I think, ran for 241 yards total in the game. The front line on defense, 4 games in, is going to be a problem the rest of the year. It's the weakest area on a defense that the last 2 games hasn't been great in general. But you got to credit this team. They did show some grit. Max said he told them that he wanted to see them fight, kind of start over in the second half. So the second half final score was, 21-0?
Yeah.
That's pretty good. But when you're the number 5 team in America and you're talking about playing for an ACC championship, and suddenly you're one of the talks of the nation, you can't put yourself in that hole, because when 21-0 in the second half on the road isn't good enough to win, that means the first half was a complete disaster.
What does this mean for Carolina, AJ? We've talked about, their stated mission being kind of compete for an ACC championship. It's funny. I think we talked about this on the preview pod too, but I actually had Carolina. I always felt Carolina was going to slip up at some point this year. I had them actually losing this game in our preseason predictions. So I didn't quite think it was going to go down like it did tonight. But what does this mean for this Carolina team, and how important is it for them to bounce back next week and against a tough NC State opponent?
Max said earlier in the week, he basically said, look, the outside world thinks we're the number 5 team in the country, but maybe that's a little too high. That's essentially what he was saying.
Yeah.
I think we saw tonight that is the case. I think we saw in the second half defensively against Virginia Tech, that is the case. I think we saw through lots of parts of both Syracuse and BC, that is the case. It doesn't mean this isn't a really good team, and won't be a really good team by the time Notre Dame comes to town after Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. I don't think anybody thought in August this team was going to maybe be the front runner to face Clemson in the ACC championship game. They might still be that. I don't know. We'll have to let and see how things shake out over the next couple of weeks. What's good about this for UNC is that if the coaches have been saying we can't commit a bunch of penalties, and they had 7 tonight, and a couple were huge. The one on the 2-point conversion, the false start, that was a tough. If they get that conversion, they're only down 2. Maybe they handle. They would handle that last minute a little bit differently. Maybe they do run the ball. They kick the ball and get the heck out of there with a W. So learning how to take care of the little things. And of course, special teams mistakes, people never talk about when they say, hey, how good is this team? Well, they're this on offense and they're that on defense. They often forget to mention special teams. But it is a third phase of the game, and it's a crucial phase of the game. And again, it was kind of costly tonight. 2 punts blocked in the first half of the first quarter. One of them, one play later, 23-yard touchdown for FSU. I think that gave FSU unbelievable life. Even the building was a lot livelier after that than beforehand. I don't think people expected them to hang. They were hoping they would, but I don't think they expected it. After that, I think they did start expecting it. And then the mistakes throughout them, we kind of alluded to them here a few minutes ago. You cannot make that many mistakes. So they learned that. Mm-hmm. And what have we kind of talked about a little bit? How, hey, people are pointing to 21 with this group. Most of this group's going to be back next year. Every experience they have now is going to make them a lot better and more ready for this stage when they get to 21. But of course, there's still, 7 games left in 20. Mm-hmm. So they have a lot that they can learn from it. But attention to detail, smoothing out some of those rough edges. And they got to figure out a way that they could be at least average on defense. What do we say in the preseason? The front line has to be average. If they're average, this could be a really good defense. But they have lost some guys. They have to deal with that. I don't think the front line was average tonight. They had a few plays. That was about it. Most of the pressure either came on a blitz. Chapman had a sack on a blitz. They blitzed up the middle a couple of times, forced Travis to move. Hopper had some pressure a couple of times chasing. In fact, on Morrison's interception, that was Hopper and pressure on that play. Mm-hmm. But, man, that interior line, they need more depth. They need more guys, and they don't have it right now. So what they learned from it, they're a good football team. They have a fairly high ceiling, but they're kind of wobbling right now, and it's going to take some time before they hit that ceiling and kind of hang out for a while at that ceiling.
Absolutely. Just still plenty to play for this season. Like you mentioned, still a lot of games left.
Absolutely.
But Carolina dropping a tough one tonight, 31-28 to Florida State in Tallahassee. That's going to do it for us. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been AJ out in Tallahassee. AJ, safe travels back. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to like it. Be sure to share it. And also be sure to check out TarHeelIllustrated.com and our YouTube channel for all the post-game videos, write-ups, and analysis that you need. So we'll see you in the next one, guys. Thanks.